What a week to be a fan of the Schmodown, and one that will go down in history. Hello everyone, welcome to After Action Report, your numbers recap show for all Schmodown matches to keep you caught up on all the action. I am your host Megs here on the Call to Action podcast channel. This week we are going to be breaking down all the matches from last week, including that pay-per-view that just dropped to the public earlier today. Make sure that you have hit like, and if you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure you are subscribed and that you have hit that notification bell so that you are made aware of every time we drop new videos here. And as always, please leave comments on this video, or if you would like to also contact me on my personal socials or through the Call to Action podcast socials, all of those are listed in the description of this video down below. So let's take a look at all the matches that we saw this week. We did finish out the first round of the singles tournament with Adam Collins going up against Peggy Gummins, Barbarian against Alonzo Duralde, and Brendan Meyer versus Jacoby Bancroft. And rounding out the week was, of course, the title match, Battlefield event between Erwin and Marisol McKee. So now we see that the first round of the singles tournament is now complete. All matches have been laid out for that, and we are set to roll into round two, which should prove to be very exciting. And with this Battlefield event, history was going to be made either way. Either Erwin was going to be added to the competitors who have been able to defend the singles title, or, as we saw, Marisol McKee becoming the first woman to hold the singles title and the first time that a woman has challenged for the singles belt since Clark Wolf back in 2018. So without further ado, let's jump right into all these matches. So to start off, we saw Adam the Coyote Collins go up against Peggy Gummins. Collins trying to kickstart another strong run in the singles tournament that made his name back in his rookie season. And we see here in round one that Collins is able to be up by 3, 9-6. He does get that perfect round plus the bonus. In round two, we see that Collins elects to spin first and decides to take Harrison Ford on his first spin, where he's able to come away with 7 out of 8 points, not missing any questions, but does check down to multiple choice once, again, not giving away any steal opportunities. Peggy decides to spin away from Natalie Portman on her first spin and ends up with new releases, where she's able to come away with 4 out of 8 points, checks down to multiple choice 3 times, does miss one of those questions, and it is stolen by Collins for 1 point. With this, now we see that Collins has gained 4 additional points to now be up by 7, 17-10 going into the third round. And we see that Gummins is able to hit a 2-pointer in thrillers, misses her 3 and her 5 in romance and family films respectively, which does give Collins the win via TKO with a final score 17-12. Adam Collins is able to answer 14 of 14 questions for 100% accuracy, scored 94% of 18 available points, and Peggy Gummins answered 10 of 15 questions for 67% accuracy and scored 44% of 27 available points. So we see Adam Collins is returning back to his former tournament form, coming away with 100% accuracy and just missing out on 100% potential points earned with that check down to multiple choice. However, Peggy Gummins was not going to go down without a fight. She kept pushing, kept trying to gain some momentum. It just hit 2 questions there in that final round that she was not able to hit, that did not force the former champion to have to hit any questions there in that third round. So unfortunately, that is the end of her tournament run. We shall see how things fare for Collins when he comes up against his second round opponent, which we will talk about later on. Our second match of the week saw the Barbarian facing up against Mr. Christmas himself, Alonzo Duralde. And we see here in the first round, Barbarian is up by 1, 7-6, neither of them being able to get a perfect round. We see here in the second round, Barbarian elects to spin first and decides to take wrestlers in film on his very first spin. Seems very confident there. He is, however, only able to come away with 4 out of 8 points, checking down to multiple choice twice, missing 1 question for 2 points. However, those points are not stolen by Alonzo, who he decides to spin away from crime and ends up taking Tom Hanks, where he comes away with 5 out of 8 points, checking down to multiple choice once, and misses a 2-point question, same as Barbarian. However, Barbarian is able to steal for 2 points. So with those steal opportunities, we see that Barbarian is able to gain 1 point to now be up by 2, 13-11 going into the third round, where we see that Duralde misses a 2-pointer in Tom Hanks, but does hit a 3-pointer in Oscars, which bounces it back over to Barbarian to hit a 2-pointer in Scores into Soundtracks. It's back over to Duralde, who does miss his 5-pointer in the 2010s, which does give Barbarian the win with a final score of 15-14, where the Barbarian answered 12 of 14 questions for 86% accuracy and scored 71% of 21 available points. Alonzo Duralde answered 10 of 16 questions for 63% accuracy and scored 48% of 29 available points. So we see that both competitors have some struggles in this match. However, we do see that Barbarian is able to come away with the win in this time. However, it'll be very interesting to see how Alonzo Duralde will fare in the teams tournament coming up later on this season. And we will see Barbarian in the second round facing off against Paul Oyama. And I mentioned earlier that with Collins winning his match, he's going to be facing up his round 2 opponent against the winner of this match, which was Brendan the Kid Meyer and Jacoby Bancroft. In this first round, we see that they are both tied at 7. Moving into round 2, we see that Meyer defers to have Bancroft spin first. This is being hosted at the Cantina, so we have the physical wheel back. Bancroft spins away from Thrillers and ends up spinning Spinner's Choice and decides to take Robert Rodriguez, where he is able to sweep that round for the full 8 out of 8. No steal opportunities afforded there. And Brendan Meyer on his spin decides to take Thrillers on the first spin. He comes away with 6 out of 8 points, not checking down the multiple choice, but misses 1 question for 2 points that is stolen by Jacoby. So the nature of this question, not checking down the multiple choice, it was asking about the color of a jumpsuit. Wasn't like Meyer was trying to debate between 2 answers that if he picked one, Jacoby was automatically going to know the other one. So I understand his decision to just go for it on the full 2 points. On the off chance, if he was right, he's able to still come away with those 2 points, but he was wrong. Didn't necessarily guarantee that Jacoby was going to be able to steal it. Unfortunately, he does, which does give Bancroft a gain of 4 points to now be up by 4 going into the third and final round. In the third round, we see that Brendan Meyer has to go first and hits his 2 and his 3 in family films and fantasy sci-fi, respectively. That bounces it back over to Jacoby, who hits his 2-pointer in new releases. Comes back over to Meyer to hit a 5-pointer in Brad Pitt, which he is able to do. And we go back over to Jacoby, who has to answer a 3-pointer in Thriller, which he is unable to do. And he also misses a 5-pointer in comic book movies, which does give Brendan Meyer the win with a final score of 23-19, where Brendan Meyer answered 13 of 15 questions for 87% accuracy and scored 85% of 27 available points. Jacoby Bancroft answered 13 of 16 questions for 81% accuracy, scored 66% of 29 available points. So we see that Brendan Meyer got a little fortunate there in that round 3, being able to overcome that 4-point deficit, but Jacoby not able to regain that lead, which does give Meyer the win here in this first round, which means he'll be facing off against Adam Collins in the second round of this tournament, a little bit of a rematch from the previous year. So it'll be very exciting to see that match. But that actually does wrap up all the matches for the singles tournament in round 1. And we move on to our main event of this week. Again, talking about Ethan Big Time Erwin facing off against Lady Justice Marisol McKee at the Scummavillian Cantina, a live taped match. Super exciting to watch, but let's see how this all broke down. Starting off here in round 1, things started off a little rocky for Lady Justice, where Erwin is able to be up by 3, 9-6, with Erwin hitting that perfect round plus the bonus. Then we come over into round 2, where Erwin defers to have Marisol spin first, who she decides to take James Stewart on her first spin, and she is able to sweep that round for the full 8 out of 8. So finding her footing here again. come over to Ethan Erwin's spin. He spins away from Wizarding World and ends up taking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where he comes away with 6 out of 8 points. Not checking down a multiple choice, but on that final question does miss for 2 points that are able to be stolen by Marisol McKee. So as a side note from the post-match interview, Sam and Erwin were discussing whether or not they needed to challenge based on the clarification of the wording inside of that question. However, with the way things shook out, that does allow a 4-point swing to where Marisol McKee is now up by 1, 16-15, going into the betting round, where we see that there is even a further swing in points where, for intensive purposes, Marisol spins the wheel. There are no spinners on opponent's choice, but she is the one that is able to spin the physical wheel, and they land on directors. Marisol is able to answer the question correctly, but Erwin answers it incorrectly, and they both bet 3 points on that question. So this is an additional 6-point swing in Marisol's favor, which now puts her up by 7, 19-12. So it seems in the beginning of this match, as I mentioned, Marisol seemed a little off kilter. She was missing some questions early there in that first round, but after that steal in round 2 and this big swing that we see here in the betting round, she has seemed to have found her footing. There's still so much more of a match to go. And we are talking about the speed round with the buzzers, where we see that Erwin is able to hit the first question. McKee answers the second question. Third and fourth questions go to Erwin, and the fifth and final question goes to Marisol. None of them answer a question incorrectly, so Erwin comes away with 3 points and Marisol comes away with 2 points, which means that Erwin has gained 1 point, but Marisol is still up by 6, 21-15, going into the final round, where we see that Erwin has to answer all 3 of his questions, which he does: a 2-pointer in Tom Hanks, 3-pointer in spy movies, and a 5-pointer in Disney, which bounces it back over to Marisol McKee, who she is able to hit a 2-pointer in musicals, and her final question, a 3-pointer in fantasy sci-fi, which does give her the win and the title with a final score of 26-25, where we see that Erwin answered 18 of 20 questions for 90% accuracy and scored 71% of 35 available points. Marisol McKee answered 15 of 17 questions for 88% accuracy, scored 87% of 30 available points. So as has been said before, history was made on this day. However, I love the line from Clark Wolf back when she and Rachel Cushing first won the team's title. There is no women's league. We are the league. I think that is such a strong testament to where the Schmoedown hopes to be, where also stated by Marisol when she went up against Janine, the skill to play displayed by them had nothing to do with whether or not they were women. They were both elite competitors, and both Ethan Erwin and Marisol McKee are elite competitors inside of this league. And this is what has happened. We have a Schmoedown champion who happens to be a woman of color, and as Marisol said at the end, everyone is equal, no one is above justice, and justice was served. And that's going to do it for this week's episode, but don't worry, we're going to be right back here every Monday, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, breaking down all the matches from the previous week. The links to these episodes and the breakdowns of all the matches that I do are going to be posted on Twitter, Facebook, and the Schmoedown subreddit, so keep an eye out for those so you can take a look at everything that I break down here. And as always, make sure that you are leaving questions. I love discussing these with you guys. Be sure to check out our Twitch channel here for the Call to Action podcast channel on Wednesdays, where you see Nat and Dylan bringing on various different guests talking about all sorts of things. So be sure to check that out. And also all the older videos that we have here on this YouTube channel, including Chill, Call Live, No Chill, and Schmobates is going to be making a return this fall. So be sure and keep an eye out for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Until next time, for the whole Call to Action podcast crew, I'm Megs, and this is After Action Report, signing off.